Where did the doctrine of the Trinity originate from? A lot of people assume that the doctrine of the Trinity originated with the apostles of Jesus Christ and with the New Testament. But when one looks at the historical sources, you will find that the doctrine of the Trinity was established hundreds of years after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Hundreds of years after the death of the apostles. It was actually established in the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Now, this council was called by the Emperor Constantine, not by the church, but by the Emperor Constantine because of this controversy that was going on. And he wanted to settle this controversy because he wanted unity in the empire. This controversy was, there was Arius, who was a priest that believed that Jesus wasn't God, that Jesus was a created being. And then there was Athanasius, who was from Egypt. And Athanasius believed in, of course, the Trinity. So they had it out in this council. And eventually, it says here in the Encyclopedia Britannica that the council rejected the view of Arius, and they didn't have anything to replace it, so they just accepted Athanasius' view of the Trinity, and this is how the Trinity got established in the church. So the Trinity was established by the Council of Nicaea and not from the New Testament apostles. You can't find in the Bible where it says God is a Trinity. It's just not there. So it didn't come from the Bible. It was established by the Council of Nicaea in AD 325. But where did this philosophy, this doctrine of the Trinity, come from? If it didn't come from the Bible, where did the doctrine of the Trinity originate from? So how did the universal church come to their solution to define God as a Trinity? Because clearly it's not in the Bible. The Bible plainly shows that there is a duality of the Godhead, of the Father and the Son. In John, the first chapter, it says here, in the beginning was the Word. Now that word is logos, and John was Aramaic, spoke Aramaic, so for him, logos meant memory or spokesman. And it says in the beginning was the spokesman. And the spokesman was with God, and the spokesman was God. So here we see a duality of the Godhead, of the Father and the Son. And notice verse 2, it says, the same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So here we see the spokesman creating the heavens and the earth. And we see in the book of Genesis, in the beginning, Elohim, that's more than one. Elohim created the heavens and the earth. And Jesus was the spokesman. He spoke for God the Father. And he was the one that said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Or we read in the book of Genesis, early in the book of Genesis, where he says, let there be light. That being, that spokesman, was the one that became Jesus Christ in the New Testament. And even in the New Testament, we see the Father calling the Son God. In Hebrews, the first chapter, verse 5, it says, for unto which of the angels he at any time said, you are my son, this day have I begotten you. Now notice, he said, to which of the angels? This just proves here that Jesus is not an angel, but he is the Son of God and is confirmed by the Father himself. And then it says again, when he bringeth the first begotten into the world, he saith, let all the angels of God worship him. So the angels are to worship Jesus Christ. And of course, only God is to be worshipped. And here he's saying, commanding the angels to worship Jesus Christ because he's the very Son of God. Notice, it says here, but unto the Son he saith, this is the Father to the Son, thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of thy kingdom. Here we see the Father calling the Son God. So Jesus is very God, and we see a duality of the Godhead. And then it says, thou hast loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore God, this is the Father calling the Son God, even thy God hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. Then it says, notice verse 10, and thou, Lord, the Father calling the Son Lord, In the beginning hath laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. So here the Father is calling the Son the creator of the heavens and the earth, and he's calling him God. How can the Father call the Son God? Well, because they're both the same kind, the God kind. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Father can call the Son God because he's the same kind. Like I can call my son human because he is the same kind. We are both human. The Father and the Son are both God, meaning the kind, the God kind. And so we see a duality of the Godhead. Where do they come up with this idea of a Trinity? Towards the end of the first century and during the second, many learned men came over both from Judaism and paganism to Christianity. These brought with them into the Christian schools of theology their Platonic ideas and phraseology. So here we see the pagans coming into the Christian church, and they brought with them their old pagan ideas of what God is, the immortal soul, and other things that we find in the Christian church today. And they try to define the afterlife, they try to define God through paganism and not from the scriptures. Notice this source by Hastings Bible Dictionary. It says here that the notion of the Trinity is not a characteristic of just the Christian religion. It says, in the Indian religion, we meet with the Trinitarian group of Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, and the Egyptian religion, with the Trinitarian group of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, constituting a divine family like the Father, Mother, and Son in medieval Christian pictures. Nor is it only in historical religions that we find God viewed as a Trinity. One recalls in particular, the Neoplatonic view of the supreme or ultimate reality, which was suggested by Plato. Plato had an idea about God. It was a Trinity. And these guys brought in their ideas from Plato into these schools of Christian theology. And they try to define God through paganism and not through the scriptures. To conclude, I have one last question. Why should we believe everything that the Council of Nicaea established as doctrine for the Christian church? What makes them so right when it comes to religion? I mean, here we have people at that time that believed in spontaneous generation. They believed that the earth was the center of the universe. Obviously, they were wrong on those things. But what? When it comes to religion, they couldn't make an error in doctrine? Why is that? I mean, why do people believe this? Is it because they wore these long robes, or they had these funny-looking haircuts and these funny-looking hats that they used to wear? Or maybe because they had this pious look on their face all the time, that they just looked so religious that they were just smarter than the modern person when it comes to religion. Is that the reason? Is this why we should believe in their doctrines? I don't think so.